most of us have probably wondered when we're going to die. Many of us have also probably wondered how, but there isn't an app for that yet. There is, however, for the former, and like the fool I am, I downloaded it. This is how long I've got left, apparently. But this app is quite annoying in that it continues to vibrate when you've closed out. I don't know how well it'll pick up. But yeah, that's quite annoying, so I'm going to have to put that on a soft surface. But this app was released to coincide with the 2019 film Countdown, written and directed by Justin Deck, starring Elizabeth Lail, Jordan Calloway, Talitha Bateman, and Tom Segura. And this is Justin Deck's first directorial feature debut. He's done shorts and the like, but this is the first full film. And he does a good job in that. You know, directorially, shot-wise, it's pretty decent. There's nothing wrong with it. It's fine. The rest of the film, however, borrows a lot from Final Destination, and we'll get into more of that in a while, and also has a lot of things that just seem shoehorned in, added just to maybe make it a bit more like sort of modern horror comedies like Happy Death Day, which I like, but you know, there's a lot that's just in there, and there's virtue signalling, and we'll get into that as well. There's just a lot here that just brings it down. The concept is fine. It's very much Final Destination : killer app, which it could have been released as and no one would have batted an eyelid. But the execution is where it falls down. But it is an interesting premise. We start with a group of kids who download this app. You know, it's like the new viral sensation, if you will. You know, like, when are you going to die? Here's a handy countdown. And the real world app is, you know, purely for entertainment purposes. They do stress that, but we'll see. Little worried. But some are getting long times and, you know, sort of well into old age, but some are getting really short, like a few hours. And they do everything they can to avoid it, but this is where the Final Destination bit comes in, because even though you've avoided, say, a car crash, you're still going to be got some other way. And there is a bit in the terms and conditions that basically if you try and avoid your fate, you are fair game, and that thing will hunt you down and make sure you die. So like I say, very similar to Final Destination. But we do mainly follow Quinn, who, you know, downloads it for fun and realises that both her and her sister, you know, down the line, have really got a few days, and she panics about it, meets this guy Matt when she's, you know, trying to escape her fate by getting a new phone, which then it auto installs the app on, which is kind of terrifying. But that's where we meet Tom Segura as well. He's the snarky, like, guy who owns the shop, I believe. And he's just there as comic relief, clearly. You know, his character isn't super fleshed out, unfortunately. But then, like I say, we get this Matt guy who is great. I enjoyed Matt. He's a nice romantic interest, and that's all he's there for, I know, again. But I do like the character. He's a nice guy and wants to help out because he's also in the same boat. Fine. But, you know, they go and meet this priest who, again, just comic relief, but I do like the fact that they're not going, oh, like, the person who gives you the information is some wise old crone kind of thing, you know, or like some really blustery kind of Max von Sydow kind of guy, you know, who's like, oh no, this is the work of this demon and you need to do this, this and this. There's none of that. He is just a geeky guy who thinks the Bible is the best, like, graphic novel style story ever. And I kind of like that, but I don't like how they put too much stress on it. The idea of this comic relief character is that he's comic relief and he just happens to deliver exposition, not the other way around. And really, everything in a film, I've said this in many videos, I'm sure, should service the story. So a guy who's there as comic relief who just happens to drop some exposition isn't there in service of story. Can you see the difference? But, you know, they go through this thing and then they realise it's this demon Ozin who, you know, just had this whole thing with like a gypsy curse years ago, because heck, everything's gypsy curses. And they go to Tom Segura to try and, you know, jailbreak the phone and sort of hack into the app, because those are analogous. But, you know, he hacks into the app and, like, there's everyone's details there, everyone's, like, time is written down and he's changing them all. But he's doing this whole, like, you know, snarky, I haven't got time for you kind of guy thing, you know, the typical geeky guy in a film, kind of like the comic book guy from The Simpsons role, basically, which is a bit annoying to us who are actually nerdy and geeky and like, no, we are nice people too.
Worst couch gag ever.
But, you know, so it's like, haha, we've changed the figures, but, of course, they change back, and they have to figure out a new way of combating this. And this is where the virtue signalling really comes in full force. Because earlier in the film, we have Quinn accosted by Dr. Sullivan, who, sort of does that thing of being super creepy and like, oh, you want this. Just don't fight it. That kind of guy. I'm not going to say the word because I'll get the banhammer of doom, I'm sure. But you know what I'm getting at. And he's just very sleazy. She's actually called into like an HR meeting where he's said she came on to him, of course, typical fashion. But towards the end of the film, it's like, okay, the way to cheat the system is to make the rules wrong. The rules are you die at this time, regardless. So if someone dies beforehand, curse is broken. If someone survives after the point, curse is broken. I like that. It's well explained. You can follow along. So they're like, okay, let's sacrifice Sullivan. What a great tool to sacrifice. And of course, Ozin doesn't want to be cheated, so it does whatever it can to get him out of the picture. And I suddenly had this moment of like, wait, Sullivan is the antagonist, if you will, of the Me Too movement. And Ozin is Hollywood trying to sweep it under the rug until it became too much of a problem. I have no doubt that that's the case. Because Hollywood likes to inject, current topical matters into films to go, hey, look, we're aware of what's going on in the world. And this was one of those where they're like, yeah, it's really bad that we were trying to protect these people, isn't it? Sorry about that. Look how bad it is that the baddie in this film is protecting the sleazy guy. And yes, okay, it works, again, sort of in service of the film, but it does feel very much shoehorned in. If that's the first thought I had, that says how much they were trying to hit us over the head with it. That, like, we're saying it's bad now. We know we can't just do what Ozin's doing and try and pretend it doesn't happen and get the guys out of the way. So I didn't really appreciate that, and I think it cheapens it. Cheapens the whole thing, because the whole Me Too movement, I fully support anyone who's come out and said, I've had these experiences. It's an awful thing. I could go into a whole video about how awful it is if I was so inclined, but I tried to keep it as light as possible and stay away from the difficult subject matter if I can, but it is one of those that, it needed a light shone on it, but Hollywood can't pat itself on the back for decrying it now. Let's put it that way. But politicking over, let's get away from this. So, of course, they need to look at another solution, and Quinn, early on in the film, there's a kind of couple come in, one of them's OD'd, and she uses Narcan to combat the overdose. So she injects herself with like 3 times the strength of morphine, which is what she was going to inject Dr. Sullivan with, and has written on her arm, Narcan, and a little guide, inject here for her sister, because obviously she died, but then, she killed herself before the time was out, but then obviously can come back, so she's cheated the system doubly, you could argue. And the demon does this thing of like trying to hold her off by pretending to be her mum, saying, oh, don't do this, and like you can see the time ticking down, because the sister's like first, she's got like a few minutes earlier window, and it's just like, no, don't do that, and she's like, sod you, I'm doing it. And like I say, then we get that. But I like the fact that we did have a Chekhov's gun scenario. We had the Narcan introduced earlier. Again, there are good elements. Everything should service the plot. And Chekhov's gun, if you're not familiar, is the idea if you introduce something at the start of the play, in that case, but in the film or whatever, it should be used later on. So we learn about the OD thing, we learn about Narcan as a combat to overdose, and it comes back later. Again, there's enough here to respect, and that's why it annoys me so well that the execution just didn't follow through. But of course, we have the heroic act, she sacrificed herself, and in sequel bait fashion, we have the end of the film like, oh, version 2's been updated onto your phone. Got you. No. I really don't know how well it performed. I hope it wasn't that great, because I don't want to see a Countdown 2 unless it's infinitely better. If, like with White Noise and White Noise 2, which is kind of another reason why I followed it from that, it's a very similar idea. If it got enough box office that a better sequel comes out, I'm happy. But I don't believe it will in today's climate. I also linked it with White Noise the Light because predicting death, there's a method to my madness. Like next week's is going to link to this in a weird way too. This could have been so much better if they hadn't have, just tacked on so much crap that they didn't need to. There's even a mid-credit scene of Tom Segura's character on his Tinder date that he mentioned earlier in the film. Okay, arguably like a Chekhov's gun, but we didn't need it. You know, and then obviously because the new version's out, he's caught up with, and we believe that he's killed. But we didn't need it. They just wanted the extra comedy on it. They should have just... If this was just a straight horror with occasional comedy, it would have been better. I really do think that. But I think this could be one of those with studio interference. I'd like to see more of what Justin Deck does. I want to see him do more things, because I don't want to judge someone just off one work. I think that's cruel and unfair. And full-length work. I'm not going to look at all the shorts, because it's a very different field. If they're all as bad as this, then I know it's him. But I don't want it to be that. But if you haven't seen this, I wouldn't recommend it. I'd skip it, to be honest. Unless you're a massive fan of, you know, the Final Destination idea of not being able to cheat death, or you like the concept that you're willing to look past its flaws. Then, okay, you know, again, everyone should make their own decision. But I really, at least this was only 90 minutes, including credits, you know, give or take. So it didn't waste too much of my life, but I don't want to talk any more about it. I'm done. Next week is, again, a matter of a sequel being better than its predecessor. And I'm not going to cover the first one because I really don't like it that much. I remember that. So I do hope you'll join me next time for that. But until then, as always, thank you for watching and take care.